ولين نعود نتذقن بين يوطها. الآن تخيل إني ما زالت ضوء البداية، ذاك هو شعوري الوحدة ما قطعت شعر.
What is now a desolate stretch of land in the heart of the Sahara was once home to thriving civilizations. From scattered communities to key outposts of powerful empires, this region witnessed and shaped the evolution of human society. The once fertile wadi where life was lush now lies barren, and with it, the heritage of those who lived here fades into the sand. Today, only one man remains, a guardian who carries the legacy of this place. Where once many chose to settle, he now stands alone, trying to preserve the past before it disappears forever. The Sahara was once vastly different from what it is today. Mauritania was at the forefront of human civilization. Across its vast lands, empires rose and fell, each drawn to places where survival was possible, near water and along the trade arteries. Our planet moves through long climate cycles driven by shifts in its orbit that alter the amount of sunlight reaching specific parts of the Earth. Around 10,000 years ago, these changes pushed the monsoon north, marking the start of the African humid period. For millennia, the Sahara was a savanna, a fertile landscape covered in grasslands, dotted with lakes and rivers, home to elephants, crocodiles, and vast herds of grazing animals, some of them more familiar today in the Sahel or even the jungle. In this world of abundance, early human communities took root. They didn't need to cluster under a single power. There was enough space and resources for many small groups to survive independently. But as time kept passing, the climate shifted again. Droughts began creeping south, water dried up, and with it, the autonomy of smaller settlements. People migrated, some reluctantly joining rival towns, others heading further south in search of life. From this slow movement were born the towns that would define central Mauritania: Tichit, Ouagadougou, Oualata, and eventually Ksar el Barka. Among these historical settlements of Mauritania, the most fascinating is Ksar el Barka, founded in 1690 as a key outpost along the Great Saharan trade routes. Before traders and scholars made it their home, the area had seen centuries of tension between pastorals and farming communities. These conflicts eventually gave way to abandonment, leaving only a handful of farmers behind, until a man named Talib Sid Mahmed bin Bayed arrived, fleeing from the northern droughts.
هذه المدينة مؤسسها راجل قال له الطالب وجاي من شارع ودع، ولين جاي مشاي اللي هو الطالب جاء معاه تلاميذ قدر من التلاميذ ومعاه والده قال له باجي، وقاموا جايين من الشارع لياليهم بنهاراتهم إلين جاوا التقانب. قاموا التلاميذ وسووا له شيخ اللي هو الطالب، قالوا احنا منين له نستقر؟ قال لهم بل منين قطعت القصر ان شاء الله له نستقر. وقيموا جايين بالليالي واليوم لهم وجاء برق وتوتم لين عاد مع الصباح خرصوا القرض. قال لهم إحنا لهنا هنا. قال ملك السلطنة مش زونوز كانوا مو يرسلهم ورقة. قال كلهم يجون وجاوا سووا لهم ذي البريديشن. قالوا لهم قال تصير البارو. قال لهم من غرق إلى منتهى النفط. قالوا قصر البركة. ودعاهم الإسلام ودخلوا في الإسلام وتوه قام يبني.
Though no longer an active trade town, the place still bears the weight of history, and one man remains to carry it. Abdallahi has lived his whole life in Ksar el Barka, following the footsteps of his family, who before him lived and even governed the town over the decades. Today, he is the guardian of the site and the surroundings. He was officially appointed by the government to help preserve both the physical place and the heritage of the town he holds so dear to his heart.
السبب اني اخلاقه هون واخباري فيها حتى واخباري بحضنها. وجات الدولة هناك جاء واعتز ومولي بذلك نبطيه باطان زين عندي ذاك اني نعوذ عليها. زين عندي مولي إن نحمي هذه المقبرة مولي اللي فيها ياسر من الغطاء. وهذا هو الأسباب اللي دفعوني على نعوذون نبقى في الخلوات إياك نعود نحضنها.
The town was abandoned only recently, after excessive droughts and the growth of nearby towns along the paved roads drew most of the inhabitants away.
قصر البركة مؤسسته كنت وعند منين خلق الحرب العالمية الثانية. خلقهم شفا وجاسوا البيت وقطروا فيها ولا حركوا عن البيت تاموا تنعاش لهم بر ولا كحلوا جايسين وهنا وفيه. ولكن شغل قبال الفخر الكبير ما أحرك عن البيت. قاطن فيها ما يحرك. هم الشيوخ هم العامي.
The town quickly deteriorated after the abandonment, and the ones who stayed went back to living the way all Mauritanian nomads do, in tents. Abdallahi is the head of one of the handful of families who still live in the area around the site.
الحياة فيها لا عادية. شفت هنا لا اعتمدوا لا على البيت هي اللي يجيبوا منها. وتو أنا مولي نمي البل والغنم.
Abdallahi spent his life not only in the town, but also exploring its surroundings. The heavy changes the landscape went through allowed the growth and establishment of several early communities, whose impact can still be seen to this day. Not far from Ksar el Barka, several cave painting sites dating back thousands of years can be found along the wadi's cliffs and caves. The paintings have plenty of variety, depicting hunting and war scenes, and animals that no longer inhabit the area, roaming freely across the land. Some of these sites are unlike anything commonly found in the country. Their sheer number is mind-blowing. The landscape, and effectively life as we know, has changed time and time again ever since the first paintings in the Wadi. It's hard to imagine such a rough and unforgiving place like the Sahara being anything other than what it is today. But in the grand scheme of things, a few hundred or even thousand years is nothing. And changes to the scenery can happen in less drastic manner even in short spans of time, as Abdallahi explains some of the ones he witnessed over his life, and the struggles they pose in keeping the town and the other sites preserved.
خلق قدر من قدر من سحب الرماء، قدر منه، ولكنه من الساعة اللي ندار عليه قرية وعدت أنا مولي عليها، عدت خالقين بليداتنا ندير فيهم، نقرس فيهم مركبة، ونقرس فيهم توقع هذه تيشو، ونقرس فيهم الأشجار لين عاد حكما فم حزام الله يشفي على ذاك اليوم، ولا كيف اللي توقع عنه. وهي كانت تعرف كان الحيوان دائما يدخله بالمسائل.
The care for his hometowns goes beyond his role as a guardian. Each day he tries his best to keep hazards away and to maintain things as they are. However, he isn't a stranger to struggles.
نعاني من المواشي السائبة، الحيوانات السائبة اللي هنا هي اللي نعاني منها. تعرف تخسر علي قرياش، أنا ما نبقى شيء يدخل هنا فيها، لا في الدشرة ولا في على الماء، لكن هو أثقل شيء نجبره. والله وقتي ماني هو وقت، تعرف خالق من الأوقات، خالق من الأزمنة اللي تتقاعد تصحى ما جاتهم ونقفل ونمشي لين يجي نلحق بعض الأعطاب في القرياش، ولكن يثقل علي لنعالج. تعرف ما أنا جبار، تعرف الناس تمشي زمن الخريف تمشي تروح، وفي حالة إنه قاعد جاني هناك إياه ما أنا قاعد موجود ما يقد حد يخسر.
As it always has, water continues to shape every aspect of life here. The Ashwir settlement dates back to the time when droughts were already more prevalent in the area. Around 2000 BC, the African humid period started to weaken, and the climate shifted towards having two clear-cut seasons. One was a wet season with high amounts of rain, and the other was a dry season with close to no rain for several months, often leading to the drying of the rivers and various basins. Such climate lasted for thousands of years, typical of the monsoon areas. It led civilization to adapt by moving settlements lower on the cliffs during the rainy season, while becoming semi-nomadic in the dry season, often moving towards the remaining basins and settling there temporarily. Over time, generation after generation, people had to adapt and overcome the challenges posed by the climate, having to sustain a much harsher way of life. Those who endure the changes and move forward carried the heritage of the Sahara. With today's resource scarcity, even small droughts can mean trouble for the people.
الله خالق عام هون المالوشي وأصعب سنة قد صبرت من ناحية تعبت حتى بي الحيوان وهي مولي عندي المدينة. تعرف الأمطار، قلت الأمطار وجف الوادي، وذيك السنة سنة صعيبة، ولكن الله قريب. قلب بر وجا الخير وجات السحاب ورجع كل شيء رجع البدو. ولكن ذيك السنة سنة صعيبة، ولكنها قاعد صعيبة على موريتانيا الأخرى شخص.
Eventually, the rain stopped coming down every year. At times, it was every other year. Other times, the droughts were prolonged. Throughout Mauritania, most of the already decimated villages were completely left to the sand, as people once again were forced to move. But move where? At this point, functioning villages were hundreds of kilometers apart, serving as hub towns with caravanserai along the blooming Trans-Saharan trade routes. Some people went west towards the Atlantic Ocean and the villages along the coast. Others went south towards modern-day Mali and Senegal, while some, coming from the Adre region, came across the Tagan, where some spots retain water year-round. Over the following centuries, Ksar el Barka would become one of the most important outposts along the Saharan trade routes. This garnered the attention of local groups who sought the same power, who over the centuries tried to challenge and conquer the town, but always failed. Abdallahi recalls a story that has been passed down for generations.
شفت ديك الساعة في ظهر خالق واحد من الأمراء قالوا سيدي محمد، وفي ظهره ازدهر تحت قصر البركة، وطمعوا الأمراء فر إنه يروقوا يقلعوها والله يروقوا. تعرف الأمراء ديك الساعة لأنه أقوى من الآخرين. الهلي جات أمارة السيد أحمد ونزلت هناك، اللي جاءوا هناك إياها وقام سيدي محمد وعدلهم. تعرف نوع من الاستعراض العسكري، قاموا بنى لهم خيام وقبال لهم 300 شير قارن واحد، عادوا هم اللي يسروا الطعام ويسروا وملبسهم لباس واحد. ولين عاد الوفاة تعرف الضيافة وذا، قالوا هذا ما نقدر له معلش إنسان لا ضيفنا هو سرفاونا إلا يشاشرتهم أنا هالنار واقفين الآخرين. تعرف هذا نوع من الاستعراض. الناس صار تعدل الاستعراض بالطائرات وما عدلوه بالشباب.
While stories like these speak to pride and power, the town's strength was built not on war but trade. In contrast to the past, large-scale conflicts were relatively rare in the Sahara during that period. The communities were instead more focused on the thriving Trans-Saharan trade network. These routes stretched thousands of kilometers, connecting the Mediterranean to the Sahel, the Atlantic Ocean to the Nile. For the traders who crossed the desert, this journey could take weeks, sometimes months. They travel in large caravans, often hundreds of camels strong, laden with salt, gold, ivory, books, textile and spices. For most people all over the desert, this would be the first time they encounter goods from outside their land. But beyond goods, they carried stories, beliefs, and knowledge. Long before European maps marked these lands, Islam has already crossed the desert, riding on the backs of caravans and carried by the voices of the traveling scholars. In between the harsh emptiness of dunes and rock, towns like Ksar el Barka were nothing short of lifelines. Places to shelter from the wind, to water animals, to pray, to trade and to rest. But even the strongest roads fade when they're no longer walked. By the late 1800s, the whole trade routes began to weaken. Colonial borders, coastal ports, and modern transport reshaped the way people moved. The caravans grew smaller, the merchants stopped coming. By the time of World War II, most of the Ksar el Barka's residents had left. The silence returned. And yet, the town was never entirely abandoned. Abdallahi remained, and with him, so did the memory of what this place once meant. For Abdallahi, caring for the town is both a duty and a calling. It shows in the way he welcomes visitors and shares his knowledge.
من هذه المدينة من الساعة اللي تنعقل الفاصل بين الجمرة والتمرة اللي أنا هنا فيها، وأعشقها، نحبها، نحب خدمتها.
It's that same passion, visceral and tied to his origins, that keeps him here despite the numerous possibilities, for a more comfortable life in other parts of the country. He may have spent his entire life in Ksar el Barka, yet Abdallahi still sees it with fresh eyes, imagining its past like a child.
هو التاريخ ما يموت جاء، ما يموت، ولين نعود نتذقن بين حيوطها. الآن تخيل إني ما زالت في أول بداية، ذاك هو شعوري الوحدة ما قطعت تعرف لين ندخلهم، لا كيف اللي هي كيف إنها مسحتها تبدي، لأن هذا النوع من الأثاث، ما هو الأثاث، هذا النوع من المدن، وبالتناوب قاعد يدير على راسه حيث راه يطلع مع المطريعات ويعطي الصاح. هذا في الحقيقة هذا ياسر من، والصيف مولي والزمن مولي اللي بتناسب، هي ما بطاعت مولي.
Abdallahi knows he won't be here forever. In recent years, he has begun preparing his younger brother to be his successor.
عندي أخو مدرب عليه، والله عندي أخو مهيئ وزاد إن شاء الله، وحالتني أنا ما تليت قادنا درب.
Eventually, their sons and daughters will be the ones with the responsibility to carry the legacy forward, a difficult task that grows harder with each passing year. But if Abdallahi has passed on even a fraction of his love for this place, Ksar el Barka will live on for as long as the sun touches the desert. The heavy weight of history for now rests on Abdallahi's shoulders, and he's proud to carry it. A reminder that every stone here was laid with purpose, that the desert once held stories, travelers, prayers and light, and that maybe through him it still does.